Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. No time to waste. Let me get right to it here. There are basically three separate things that I'd like to cover. There's a few geopolitical things, of course, that I want to discuss here right off the top. Some updates regarding Hurricane Milton as well. And again, a little bit more regarding voter fraud. And then I want to get into, again, a summary of the protocols of the Elders of Zion, and I want to read through that. I also want to tell people that I turned that into a PDF document, which does exist on my website now. It's under the Government Documents tab, and you'll see it right below the actual PDF version of the entire protocols if you're interested in reading both. But again, I'm going to read the summary of it here that was put together by an individual on X in just a little bit here. And then regarding, again, education news, specifically the subject of school violence, which is directly in my research wheelhouse. I've written numerous books about the subject. My dissertation research was based around it. Most of my graduate work and doctoral work, was based around the subject of violence in school. And of course, it was something that I was always attuned to when I specifically taught for 9 years. And I saw exactly what was going on. And right from the very beginning, I knew what the problems were. And again, no one wants to actually believe that the problem are the adults who actually work within these buildings themselves, certainly not the individuals that work within those environments. They don't want to believe that for a minute. They don't want to believe that bad instruction, bad leadership, a lack of accountability, a number of other things are actually the real reasons why violence continues to exist. But this is rather common sense. The individuals within these environments are the reason, and their hypocrisy is limitless when it comes to, again, the real causes of actual school violence. Again, you give these people an inch of rope, they'll hang themselves with it because they can't keep their mouths closed when it comes to their own hypocrisy regarding school violence and, again, their lack of permanent accountability. It's not even extreme accountability. It's just the word accountability. It does not exist. This is why, again, you have parents blaming children, children blaming parents, parents blaming schools, schools blaming parents, schools blaming children, and there's always the constant infighting year in and year out. There would be no infighting year in and year out if there was permanent accountability, but there is none. You've heard me bring this up on the show a long time ago. Schools will always claim to have zero tolerance policies. It's furthest from. There's no such thing as a zero tolerance policy that exists within a school that any school actually sticks to. Zero tolerance is zero tolerance only in name and only in identity. It is not actually in the meat of their actual policy. So zero tolerance would be something like this. Again, just to summarize very quickly before I get back to hurricane stuff and geopolitical stuff. Zero tolerance in any environment, would be something like, if you get in a fight, you are expelled. Period. You are never coming back to this school district, period. That's zero tolerance. If you bring drugs to school one time, you're gone permanently. You're immediately gone. You're expelled. You're never coming back to this school district. Go find another school district to screw around in. If you sexually assault somebody, you're gone. The moment it happens, you're gone. We catch you. We immediately kick you out of school as soon as you're found guilty and you're gone. That's zero tolerance. It doesn't exist in the American K-12 school system. It will never exist in the American K-12 school system because, and this is difficult for even the employees to understand, three-letter agencies, the Jewish lobby, and government want the environment of American schools, public-private charter, to be chaos. They just want them filled with chaos. They want them filled with brainwashing. They want them filled with a lack of accountability. They want them filled with demoralization. This is the point. This is why there is no zero tolerance. And I have endless examples here to bring up toward the end of the episode, including, again, words directly from even local education, quote-unquote, officials regarding, again, them blaming parents and them blaming students and not taking any responsibility themselves. Again, their hypocrisy has zero limit when it comes to violence in school. That's exactly why these places have got to be abolished. And you have to leave these environments. You cannot change them. You cannot reform them. It will not happen. So anybody out there, again, reporting on education stories, whoever they are and wherever these people exist, usually on X and then other places, if they aren't following up their story with, this is reason number fill in the blank, to keep your children away from these environments permanently and have them home learning on their own in home in a safe environment for the rest of their time. Excuse me, certainly throughout high school, and I, of course, recommend online college for those who are interested in attending college. But that's exactly what all of those stories should be should be rounded out with, basically. But they aren't. It's just one complaint session after another. It's one, oh, look at this salacious story about education after another. Again, whether it be libs of TikTok, Chris Rufo, the list is endless. These people don't bring up the fact that at the end of all of those arguments, you have to say, children who can read and write on their own can teach themselves. And so that's exactly what has to happen. And then you provide them options, and numerous curricular options. Books, online, investigation, inquiry, you name it. Again, those exist on my website under the Education Documents tab. You can check those out. Solutions, ladies and gentlemen. There are solutions to government, but it's not within government. It's not in, well, we can reform and fix this. All these other organizations, you wouldn't believe the emails I get that I'm on, apparently immediately thrown on these email chains of these people that I've never even met, and these organizations that I've never even seen. One of them is called something like Parents Protecting Education. I mean, something along those lines. And they claim, again, basically they're just this giant money laundering, money siphoning system that complains about the education system and then encourages people to fight back against the education system, but they never tell people to home learn and to teach themselves at home. They never do this, and they never provide the solutions and the curricular examples and the deprogramming education that has to take place in order to get their mind frame away from government education or indoctrination, torture, brainwashing, all the words that I've used to describe the government system. They never do that. That should tell you that these people are grifters, that they're in it for the money, or they're in it for, again, promotion or advertising or whatever it may be. They're not in it to permanently solve the problem. So again, I'll get more into that in a little bit with more specifics. Let me begin with this now. First of all, in the last episode, one of the individuals that I didn't mention because I didn't have his name offhand was a guy by the name of Dan Wigington. Dan Wigington was the guy who talked with Colonel McGregor, and his website is geoengineeringwatch.org. If you're interested in learning more about him and that organization, you can bounce over to that website, geoengineeringwatch.org. Okay. Now, with that aside, there's this, and I'm going to play the audio associated with this very quickly, but I've been aware of this story since the start, although I haven't taken a deep dive into it, certainly the way that other individuals and citizens of Georgia would. And it has to do with, of course, the chemical fire and the biolab chemical fire in Conyers, Georgia. Again, I leave this to the individuals of Georgia. My overarching point regarding that entire story is no one will be arrested. Because, let's face it, no one's been arrested for any other fire that's taken place, whether it be East Palestine and that entire just awful debacle. And by the way, the people there are still sick, remarkably ill. Nothing's really being done. It's, of course, seeped into the soil and into the water table and the whole thing. There was another one in southern Cincinnati, same exact thing. Very similar, although perhaps not quite as serious, but it was certainly chemicals within a train car that were shooting into the sky. And again, all of these grain fires and these other factory fires all across the United States. Not to mention, of course, Wyoming. Wyoming is on fire also. A lot of the citizen-owned land, so to speak, is on fire. A lot of lithium deposits there as well. More of a land grab. Again, this is not an accident. But my overarching point, again, with all of this is that these people are not being arrested. And I think, again, this is a larger aspect of this entire episode here, which is if there's no public accountability, and I mean the highest form that is quote unquote public for us to see, then nothing is going to change. It's going to be one crime after another, one chaotic event after another, and then one roadblock by government after another. Again, the hurricane response, of course, in North Carolina, Virginia, East Tennessee, etc., should prove that to people. That should be more than enough proof. Fortunately, again, regarding the hurricane very quickly in Florida, I'll get back to Conyers in just a second, but Ron DeSantis himself said, don't listen to government. He said, if anybody tells you that you can't return to your home, they're lying to you. You're allowed to return to your home. It's your property. Do what you want. Good. That's a good thing. So again, this is the difference here. Regarding Conyers, Georgia, this happened just the other day. I'm sure many people are already aware of this, but this is from Shadow of Ezra on X, where he said the following, quote, Kenny Johnson, a Georgia environmental official, tragically collapsed and died shortly after testifying about the biolab chemical fire near Atlanta. The 62-year-old had just addressed a public meeting on the toxic blaze, which spread dangerous chlorine gas and forced 17,000 people to evacuate. Moments before collapsing, Johnson, an outspoken advocate for environmental safety, had complained of shortness of breath. He was rushed to a hospital but did not survive. Now the Georgia Bureau of Investigation is looking into his sudden death. Johnson has been actively pushing for Biolab's closure, warning of its environmental dangers. Again, he died shortly after speaking at this meeting. You're going to hear him now for 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Again, was he jabbed? Probably. In particular, if he's a government employee or was a government employee. It's hard to know, but again, you'll hear it straight from his mouth regarding his complaints, the government officials that he talked to and attempted to, shed a light on all of this, and they, of course, ignored him. And this, again, this is the problem. Government is our problem. They will not be our solution for anything ever. Give this late man a listen, Mr. Kenny Johnson. Again, rest his soul. He told the truth here. This is a big deal. Seems like a rather honest guy, which is great, and that is certainly in short supply. Give him a listen here in 3, 2, 1.
I worked in a field like this before, and catch my breath. But this company is called a COD. What I mean is, it's a chemical oxidant demand. They treat their own water. And the chemicals that they keep on property, sulfuric acid, MIBK, that will kill you. Everybody in Rockdale County need to go to the doctor and check out their blood for toxins. Please get that out. They used to send me out every time, at least every other month. So, please. Next thing is, I asked for a federal criminal investigation. This is not the first time. This is the second time. I've been asking for this 3 weeks ago to Senator Alsop, Senator Warnoff, and Congressman Hank Johnson. Both of all the officers said they was going to do an inquiry and have the DOJ get involved. I had the HOA on the phone calls with me. 3 weeks later, 3 weeks later, what we have? Fire. But they say it's an accident. Where's the MSDS? Where's the material safety data sheet? Where's the layout of the company? Why the chemicals wasn't stored in the dry place? Why they didn't call out foam truck like they did in 2004? But they pour water on the chemical that reacts. How are we going to solve this? We need a federal criminal investigation.
You're never going to get any answers or any objective investigation from anybody in government regarding something like this. Again, was it deliberate? you can take a pretty good bet that it was deliberate. Most of these fires for most of these factories, whether they be chemical, grain, etc., they're almost always on purpose. They're all arson. They're all designed to make people sick. They're all designed to, again, shut down the local area regarding whatever it is that they're doing. And this is the easiest way to make people sick too, by the way. You find these chemical factories and these chemical labs and you just set them on fire. Throw a little water on top, like he said, instead of foam, which puts out the entire chemical and the fire at the exact same time. And it amplifies everything. Just like in East Palestine, same thing. So again, rest his soul for telling that, for passing away, and thank God he told the truth about what was going on. He certainly showed his expertise. Again, he openly said he's been in the field for a very long time. He's reached out to, of course, Democrats in Georgia who are representatives in Washington, D.C. These people aren't going to do anything. They won't do anything. Again, the senators and the congressmen and women for specific states who find their way into Washington, D.C. forget where they come from. Because they don't care, by and large. They typically don't. I'm not saying that to blackpill, I'm just saying that's kind of the way that it goes. The vast majority of individuals who make their way to D.C. don't really represent the people who live in the place that they are supposed to represent. The state district or the state as a whole. It's typically not the case. But either way, I fully understand that story took place. You can count on there being more chemical fires. You can probably count on there being more train derailments, things of that nature. Again, before, during, or after the election. It's one of the easier ways to, again, I would say deflect, distract, and harm at the exact same time. So, is it terrorism? Of course it is. And they're not catching anybody. They're not arresting anyone. Whoops, the entire place just went up in flames. Anyway, on to the weather. On to sports, ladies and gentlemen. And then it's the very next story. So yeah, we're being attacked from within. I think that's beyond evident and beyond clear. Okay, moving on to hurricane stuff. Fortunately, the prayers seemed to work, and Milton seemed to be not as strong when it hit the coastline of Hillsborough County, and of course the counties both north and south of Tampa there in Florida, which is a good thing. I fully understand that there's power out, there's trees down, branches down, you name it, but endless individuals were clearly indicating that it wasn't nearly as strong, and that's certainly a very good thing. With that said, there was also this, which was kind of making the rounds the other day. I put this out on Gab too, a bunch of people did. This has to do with what is called Project Phoenix 2.0. This was a crisis simulation for the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council. They're the ones that put this together. And it specifically, again, has to do with a hurricane hitting the Tampa region, specifically a Category 5 hurricane, and then, of course, what will happen after the fact. So you can look this up on their own website. It is tbrpc.org/Phoenix. And again, it's titled Project Phoenix 2.0. Here's what it says. It says, a hurricane simulation for Tampa Bay small businesses and emergency management agencies. It says, what if a Category 5 hurricane struck the Tampa Bay region? How would the event unfold? And what would the region look like in the aftermath of the storm? It says Project Phoenix 2.0, the recovery is a facilitated training exercise that examines critical issues and capabilities of Tampa Bay area small businesses and emergency management agencies during disaster recovery. A series of videos supplement the exercise, illustrating a simulated Category 5 hurricane hitting Tampa Bay, paralleled with lessons learned and words of advice from small business owners impacted by Hurricane Michael in 2018. The tabletop exercise, or TTX as they call them, and of course, as you know, there have been many of these, including that last one called Clade X, if I'm not mistaken. I ran over that one on the show. That was absolutely ridiculous, again, having to do with more widespread illness in Marburg and all this other stuff, which, by the way, The WHO continues to push that right now about as hard as you could possibly imagine. But this Project Phoenix goes on, and it says that this tabletop exercise leads participants through a facilitated discussion of roles, procedures, and responsibilities in the context of a Category 5 hurricane in the greater Tampa Bay area. The TTX is divided into 4 modules that cover a range of emergency preparedness and recovery topics, including Module 1, 1 day later, immediate impacts and damage assessment. Module 2, 1 week later, short-term recovery operations. Module 3, 1 to 6 months later, long-term recovery operations. And Module 4, 1 year later, long-term recovery operations. Unfortunately, in this tabletop exercise, they do a number of different things. One, of course, is they have an entire YouTube video putting all of this together by also using local media outlets to help them with this completely fabricated scenario. But again, I don't want people to misunderstand this, because someone listening to this would say, "Well, that sounds like a preventative move, Sean, and that sounds like a good thing." No, it isn't. This is a 15-minute city introduction. This is a way to repurpose land, redraw property boundaries, and then ultimately again rebuild a city under the framework and certainly the blueprint of what globalist government would want. That's why they specifically run these scenarios. They run these scenarios on purpose, just like the COVID lie. Again, they're all Trojan horses. And if you can manufacture the Trojan horse, and you can amplify the size of the Trojan horse, then you can stuff more globalist policies inside that Trojan horse. That's the entire purpose of all of this. Most places, most living areas, and again, local councils don't have a crisis simulation scenario. It's not an accident that they don't. Many don't because, again, what's the point? Why would you really need one? Do people who work in crisis scenarios not already know what to do? Or is global government and these global NGOs attempting to even restructure what they want those local officials and those first responders to do in the wake of some manufactured crisis and or manufactured weather event? This is what people have to consider. This is what people have to understand is an actual thing. It's not accidental. They run through these scenarios because they anticipate wanting to do this to a very specified area. And again, Tampa was the target. Fortunately, it wasn't as bad as what people thought, which is a great thing. It's bad for the bad guys, good for the good guys. But again, the simple fact that they even show these scenarios and hire people to manufacture and script these scenarios should be suspicious enough. In fact, let me play this particular piece of audio from Yuval Noah Harari. You've heard the name before. I've played audio of his here before. He, of course, is an Israeli rat and claims to be a historian and philosopher. Well, he's a piece of trash, but again, you give these individuals an inch of rope and they'll always hang themselves because they cannot help but tell people what their plans are, in particular when you give them a microphone or a stage or a way to communicate. So here's a piece of audio of him again talking about the COVID lie and why the entire lie, as he admits, it's a lie, why it was introduced. Because if you introduce something that seems logical to people or is commonplace, so they might think, then what you usher in response, they'll just widely accept. So give him a listen here in 3, 2, 1.
COVID is critical because this is what convinces people to accept, to legitimize total biometric surveillance. If we want to stop this epidemic, we need not just to monitor people, we need to monitor what's happening under their skin, their body temperature. Like we walked in here, we had to go through a body temperature test. Now they're using it to see whether you have the coronavirus. But exactly the same technology can determine what you think about the government. You know, anger is a biological phenomena, just like disease. It's not some spiritual thing out there. It's a biological pattern in your body. With this kind of surveillance, I mean, you watch the big president, the big leader, gives a speech on television. The television could be monitoring you and knowing whether you're angry or not, just by analyzing the cues, the biological cues coming from your body. Are you angry about what you hear? Are you frightened? Are you bored? This is the kind of power that Stalin didn't have. You know, when Stalin gave a speech, everybody, of course, clapped their hand and smiled. Now, how do you know what they really think about Stalin? It's very difficult. You can't have a KGB agent following everybody all the time.
The audio cuts off there, my apologies, but at the exact same time, whether it be COVID or a hurricane or what have you, this is all being done again for surveillance purposes. You just heard him tell you what he wants to do. It's pretty evident, too, given the looks on the people's faces who are on stage with him, that they don't agree with him. But even so, they can't verbally disagree with him on stage and certainly not on camera because they'll end up dead. Because he has too much influence. But he's a psychopath. He's a mass murderer. This is an individual, again, who cannot keep his mouth closed and is openly talking about surveilling individuals, in particular if they disagree with someone who is in charge. Again, you just heard him reference Stalin. I mean, when Stalin spoke, everybody applauded. But what are they thinking? What are they thinking about Stalin? Because if they didn't like Stalin and we could track their brain patterns and their emotions and their eyeballs and their whatever it is, their voice and their intonation, as to what they actually feel about Stalin, well, then we can knock on their door and we can round them up and we can shoot them in the back of the head. That's exactly what he's advocating for, which, as we know, is Marxist, communist Bolshevism. But see, he's wrapped up in technology. He loves the technology piece, which is technological Bolshevism. This is, again, using weather modification is just one example of how you can do this on such a grand scale and use it as just one arrow in the quiver of a million other arrows in order to accomplish the exact same goal, which is technological Bolshevism. Tracking individuals to the point where if someone is being tracked that government disagrees with, that person gets scooped up and then they get thrown away. Minority Report. It's the same thing. We don't like the way that you're thinking about us, so we're going to get rid of you. That's the ultimate plan here. If they can't kill you off outright, then they want to be able to control you to the aspect of them being able to kill you. Yes, it's 1984. Yes, it's a brave new world. It's all of that, no doubt about it. But people like him have to die. People like him have to be executed because he's openly talking about killing the human race. All of us. He's openly talking about this. He's openly talking about stripping everyone of their rights, and if you disagree with this, well, there's something wrong with you. This is the extreme accountability that has to take place here publicly. We have to see his little rat face, again, hanging from something. I don't care what object he's hanging from, but it's things like that have to happen immediately. I don't care if it's in an international court, a military tribunal, whatever. Round him up, buy a bullet, rent a gun, and get it over with these people. Something has to happen here. They can't keep going around the world and finding their way on stages and telling everybody about how they want to control and kill everybody. If you did that, you'd be in jail. If I did that, I'd be in jail. Well, Sean's finding his way on stages and he's talking about how to control everybody. He's talking about how to kill everyone. And, well, maybe not kill them, but he likes technology and he wants to control individuals and certainly surveil them, which seems unconstitutional, but whatever. He's got ideas. It doesn't matter. The vast majority of any thinking population would say I was a psycho if I said such things. Same thing as you. They'd think we were nuts. Because we would be nuts. Because advocating for such Such a thing and such things is criminally insane. Now, getting back to the hurricane, speaking of criminally insane, take a listen to this bias. This is from greatawakening.win, and it was titled the following and then said the following, quote, it says, I live down here in Florida, south enough of the eye to only get 60 to 70 mile per hour winds, tops, and a little bit of flooding. Generator, so I'm good to go. Have had the Weather Channel on since 24/7 the last 3 days and wanted to share what I've witnessed. They said the following, quote, absolute blatant bias by the Weather Channel. Since Monday morning, I have not changed my channel. They have been airing anti-Trump, pro-Kamala commercials multiple times every hour. I have not seen any pro-ads at all. They even went so far as to have Biden on, crying about climate change misinformation and throwing a pissy fit over weather modification. Of course, if Biden says that weather modification isn't real, as he said regarding Marjorie Taylor Greene's comments about it being very real, if it's coming out of his mouth, then clearly it's a lie. So that should tell even the people who think that Biden is a liar. Well, if he says weather modification isn't real or nuts, or that you're nuts for thinking that it's real, then, ladies and gentlemen, he just gave you the answer to the question. It then says, while one of their meteorologists was live, they had Kamala call in for her little phone op to make it seem like she gives a shit. Even in a state of emergency, the Weather Channel and the deep state still use it as an opportunity to shit on Trump and push their agenda. These people are disgusting, sick, vile, degenerate freaks, and I can't fucking wait to see the look on their faces when justice finally comes. It will be biblical. It will be beautiful. Just thought I'd share my observations. Stay frosty, friends. We're almost there. Have faith. Nothing can stop what is coming, unquote. Yeah, good. Good. Again, I'm glad that Milton wasn't as strong as what people were saying and predicting, and certainly didn't hit land as being as strong as what people were saying and predicting, and that, of course, is a very good thing. Okay. One quick thing on voter fraud here. I have one piece of audio regarding Trump, and then I'm going to get into the protocols and the summary of the protocols of the Elders of Zion. First of all, with voter fraud in Texas, there is a lot of it in Texas. Their Secretary of State is basically allowing illegals to use a piece of paper to identify themselves in order to not only register, but actually vote. That's not good. And I know that that's old news, but my apologies on just getting to that now. With that said, there's also this. There's a giant post that was put on 4chan. Let's see, this would have been on the 8th of October here. And it again has to do with the number of money that is being sent to all of these refugee, quote-unquote, resettlements. And in all of the states where, of course, this is taking place. This, of course, as we know, is why FEMA doesn't have the money. And government doesn't apparently, so they say, have the money to actually rebuild these people's homes because they're spending it all on illegal aliens. This is a very long thread. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I am going to read the first part of it, but I will link this in the description below, along with a number of other documents for your consideration if you're interested in taking a closer look at this. The first post said the following. It says, quote, Biden administration's HHS awarded $700 million for refugee resettlement in North Carolina. Now, I don't know why they said refugee. They're illegal aliens, but either way. It goes on. It says, Purcell. Picrel, $50 million facility in North Carolina leased by feds for illegals, resettlement before election. It says, through the Administration for Children and Families, ACF, the Department of Health and Human Services provided funding to states and nonprofit organizations to assist refugees, it says, with housing, employment services, legal services, welfare enrollment services, and even dollar-for-dollar matching contributions to refugee savings accounts. ACF also funds contracts for refugee intake facilities, which have been used to house illegal alien asylum applicants processed at the southern border. It says the hurricane exposed the size of their resettlement operation. In total, over $500 million of ACF, which is Administration for Children and Families, funds have been awarded for refugee resettlement activities in North Carolina since 2021. It says, don't let this slide. They said the Biden administration's ACF has awarded a total of $286 million contracts related to an illegal alien intake facility in Greensboro, with $145 million outlaid as of July 5th, 2024. It says the 800-bed facility is located in American Hebrew Academy, which was awarded $50.4 million for the 5-year lease. Jews again, ladies and gentlemen, and we know this. We've known this. Again, while a lot of this isn't new, the numbers are staggering. So again, it's a much longer post. I will link that in the description below if you're interested in checking that out. I also put a lot of those posts on Gab too. If you bounce over my Gab page and you keep scrolling, you'll definitely find it there as well. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. And yes, this fits directly into the protocols. Are you ready for this? Like I said, I took this entire X post, and what I did is I put it into PDF format. I just kind of cleaned it up a little bit, tossed it into a PDF. It's 12 pages long. And then I put it on my website under the Government Documents tab. If you're interested in having that document, you, of course, can bounce over there and download it yourself for your own archives. You can share it with anybody you'd like, and there you go. One quick thing before I start the protocols. I did put together a very quick Substack article with 5 videos from Gemma O'Doherty, who is an Irish journalist, lovely lady. And she was one individual who went to court regarding COVID, the whole COVID lie. And of course, as you would expect, and this was years ago, in fact, I think I played this audio on the show when it first happened, but not only does COVID not exist, but no one can prove that it exists because it's never been isolated because it's not a virus. So there is no COVID. Again, this has been court proven. This has been proven in legal documents that no one has isolated, quote unquote, coronavirus. Because there are no such thing as viruses and there's no such thing as COVID. So again, if you're interested in sharing that Substack over at theamericanclassroom.substack.com, please do that. Again, it's got a lot of hearts and a few restacks already. Again, I just threw it together very quickly. I saw that someone on X had compiled those particular videos of her talking outside of what appeared to be a courtroom, discussing the actual court case and how, of course, no one could actually prove that COVID exists, including the judges, and that was ultimately their ruling. Again, those videos are years old. It dates back to 2021. So again, if people are still saying, well, they have COVID or COVID's real or I took a test and it tested positive, these are people that are so far behind the curve and so brainwashed that if you were to share that article with them, they'd get a nosebleed. Anyway, again, I'll link that in the description below if you're interested in checking those out. Now, very quickly, before I get into the protocols, let me play this just very, very fast here. Donald Trump was on the podcast Flagrant with Andrew Schultz and his co-hosts. There was a particular portion of this, of course, where he was asked, who do you think was behind your assassination attempts? And he deflects. And he openly says that he's deflecting. And they don't let him off the hook. I mean, they basically say, so who do you think? So I want to play that audio right now, and then I have my 2 cents on it. And then again, I want to go back to the Law of War manual rather just very quickly and just describe what I think has to happen with this here in the future. So give this a quick listen in 3, 2, 1.
I'm sure you've thought about this a lot. It's an assassination attempt. If you had to guess, who do you think is responsible?
These are great questions. What the hell? I don't get these questions from the fake news.
Yeah, Rosie O'Donnell's not asking
like
this.
Deface the Nation. They have the woman of Brennan. She's on Deface the Nation. She was terrible with the way she handled J.D. Vance, who did a great job the other night.
He did a great job.
But I don't get questions like that. Did you ever hear of the show Deface? Ladies and gentlemen, it's Donald Trump on deface the nation. It's called face the nation. They hate me. They spend millions of
They would
dollars.
name a show that?
No, I see. You didn't hear it, but that's good. They spend millions of dollars on the name CBS.
Yeah.
And then I come along and I say it's face the nation. It's a well-known show.
Yeah.
Or meet the fake press.
Yeah.
Meet the press.
You're good at
I
this.
say meet the fake press.
Yeah.
And they spend all this money, and then I say it once, and it goes to millions of people.
Yeah.
But no, they are fake. But some of these questions are much better.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm honored.
Much better.
You still haven't answered though.
That was the best dodge of the question.
That was almost that's your second best.
You know what
dodge
I'm
of your
trying
life.
to
You almost charmed us out of
I'm
it.
trying to get out of it.
All right, fair enough.
Well, look, if you look at assassinations or attempts, first of all, you realize I'm in a very dangerous business.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because 1/10, think of this, 1/10 of 1% of auto races die.
Yeah.
Bull riders, I think that's pretty dangerous,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I don't know much about it, but I think I wouldn't want to be on one of those suckers.
No.
Yeah.
I see them flying off and the hoof is like an inch from the eye. And when it hits the eye, you're gone,
Game
right?
over. Yeah.
And they are very, well, it's about the same. 1/10 of 1%.
Yeah.
And other things, it's never much more than that. That's sort of maxed out, I think.
Yeah.
Race car drivers, bull riders, I think that's pretty much tough.
Yeah.
UFC fighters, it's none.
Mhm.
I don't think anyone's ever actually.
Not in UFC. In MMA or boxing.
Maybe.
Unfortunately,
It must
there was
be.
those tragic events. Yeah.
Amazingly, boxers die a lot. But UFC, Dana tells me it's a safe sport. I say, to me, it's much rougher. But, it's pretty amazing. They've never, in UFC, they've
Yeah.
never lost. And they run a great operation. Nobody's died. But with presidents, it's like a substantial percentage.
Way higher than we
When
realized.
you look at Lincoln and Kennedy and this and that. I mean,
Attempts,
you go
Reagan.
through
Yeah.
McKinley.
Yep. Garfield.
You look at a lot of people. I'm in
Yeah.
a very dangerous
Dangerous business.
profession.
Yeah.
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 I call it a profession.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm in
I
a
like
dangerous profession.
I like that.
I'm sitting with you guys. You have a very nice, safe life. Me?
Yeah.
So, no, if you said 5%.
I think he called us soft.
No,
Yeah,
but think
I'm fine
of
with
it. Yeah, but think of it. 5%.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That's
Yeah.
high.
That's a lot.
I
And
think even the attempts is something like
Attempts?
25%.
Yeah.
Of
attempts
presidents have
is
had
getting
attempt.
into really
It's crazy.
numbers. So,
Okay, very quickly again. It was a long interview. It was, let's see, it was about an hour and a half long, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, about an hour and 27 minutes. The fact is he did deflect because he knows. He knows. Now, again, I'm not defending his past moves. As you know, I'm not defending him wearing the small hat. I'm not defending all of this. However, there is keeping up appearances. There is the law of war. There are a number of other things here taking place. There, of course, is the Law of War Manual. You can look this up in the Law of War Manual, and it has to do with military occupation. Chapter 11 of the Law of War Manual, which is approximately about 80 pages long, which starts with 11.1 and it runs until 11.23, which runs everywhere from the introduction to when military occupation laws apply, all the way down to 11.23, which is other economic regulation of occupied territory. Everybody knows that the moneylenders in the Jewish lobby were behind the assassinations of Lincoln, McKinley, Garfield, JFK, RFK. They shot at Reagan. We know this. And it was all, again, designed to increase global government, increase the Jewish lobby's control over individuals. And again, assuming that the assassination attempts were real and not staged in one way or another. I'm not saying that they necessarily were. I still find it odd that Corey Comparatore's fire uniform was misspelled at the Butler rally. When Donald Trump went back to the Butler rally, again, they had his uniform in the stands. It was still misspelled. It still had an A missing. That seems odd to me. Seems like something you wouldn't get wrong is the spelling of a last guy's name who allegedly died in this entire thing. But either way, there's more going on here than what we can imagine, and he clearly doesn't want to answer the question because he has to know. What he's also doing, of course, is he's telling people, look at who attempted to assassinate and did assassinate, rather, these past presidents. Look what happened with these individuals. Who were the people and the groups responsible for doing this? Everybody with a brain knows that it was the Jewish lobby. Everybody knows it was Mossad. Everybody knows this, in combination, of course, with our own three-letter agencies. Everybody is aware. This is a historic fact. If people don't know this, then they don't read enough. If people don't know this, then they don't listen enough. If people don't know this, they don't, look into the truth enough. That's not our problem. It becomes our problem when they attempt to argue with us about it, but other than that, this is their issue. So again, he's giving breadcrumbs, which I admire and I like, because you know that he can't outright say it. Think of the chaos that would ensue, and how the media would use that against him and against endless people. If he came out and said, well, you know what, it's the Jews. I mean, if he immediately said that, everybody would turn on him. And would they kill him? Probably. They'd probably even kill his entire family. They'd do a thousand things. But again, if I was to say that there's a potential silver lining in all of this, it's the Art of War from Sun Tzu and the Law of War Manual. There's ample evidence that these have been used this entire time. Are we occupied by a foreign government? Yes. Is that China? Well, it's partially China when it comes to land ownership. But who sold them the land? The Jewish lobby did. Because it's the Jewish lobby that owns the land in America through taxation and usury. This is how this gets done. Again, The Great Red Dragon or London Money Power. Excellent book. Highly recommended. That right there proves that that is in fact the case. So again, the occupying governments are not just China. It is Israel. It is the Jewish lobby. It is the moneylenders, the bankers, the property owners, you name it. These are the individuals, again, that are responsible for all of this. Do you think, again, that Donald Trump doesn't know that the Jewish lobby runs pornography? Do you think that he doesn't know that the Jewish lobby runs the banking system? Do you think that he doesn't know that the Jewish lobby influences the education system, which ushers in all of the perversions that get ushered in through the K-12 education system? Same thing with colleges and universities. Do you think that he doesn't know that? He has to know it. The question becomes, who's going to do something about it, and when is that going to get done? It has to be done first through exposure of these facts. And through, again, getting through any level of uncomfortable behavior that people are uncomfortable with because they've believed their comfortable delusion for far too long. This has to be broken through first. That's why the Q drops were purposeful and purposefully timed. It wasn't designed to brainwash people. It was designed to do the exact opposite. Because everybody knows that regardless of what rabbit hole you go down, you end up at the exact same level as I've said before. And then once you're down at that base level and you look around, you go, oh, okay, it's all of you. I got it. You're all responsible for all of this. And that's the answer. So again, I'm optimistic because I like to try to be an optimistic person as much as humanly possible. Even though I bring up terrible things on the show all the time, that's not indicative of who I am as a person. I'm an optimistic person, and I fully understand that someone like Donald Trump in his position has to keep up appearances. I also understand that in 2016 when he was running, he was giving speeches to Jewish lobby groups, and he was openly saying, you don't have to support me, I don't care, I don't need your support. He goes, you support people because you give them money, and then they feel like they have to support you because you've given them money. And he's openly again said, well, that's not the case with me, and blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, that's a direct contradiction to what's happening now, where he's openly, of course, receiving $100 million from Miriam Adelson, and then, of course, he's making the Jewish rounds and having rabbis whisper in his ears regarding this Jewish ceremony or at that Jewish ceremony or whatever. And then again, palling it up with Ben Shapiro and whatever else. It's bad optics but it's also bad optics for somebody looking at it one-dimensionally. So the sole question I would ask people is, do you think that something else is going on here? And it's highly possible that yes, there's much more going on here than what meets the eye. Again, he wasn't going to openly say in the Andrew Schultz flagrant podcast interview who he believes is behind his assassination attempts. But I think we know who it is. So again, you're not going to hear that from Congress. You're not going to hear any of that from the FBI. You're not going to hear from the Secret Service. But we know who's responsible. Because they want somebody else that they can control more. Is he controlled by the Jewish lobby? I don't know. There's ample evidence that that might be the case. But at the exact same time, there's been so much that's been going on against the Jews this entire time that it certainly seems like they would want him out of the way also. So again, I would encourage people to pray for everybody's safety regarding this, certainly his safety. But again, time will tell as to what happens here going forward. Because if we don't see drastic changes against the Jewish lobby in the future, we're going to know something else is going on here. You know my take on this. I've said this a million times. I just wish that people would stop giving speeches to AIPAC and to these Jewish groups. Just stop doing it. If you're not Jewish, don't wear the small hat and touch the wall. Well, why haven't you met with the rabbis, Mr. President, in the White House and in the Oval Office? Why haven't you met with all of them? Because I'm not Jewish. That's your answer. Because I'm not Jewish. Because I have a job to do. People can practice their religions. Get out of here with that. Go do it. I have a job to do. And then you just repeat yourself over and over and over again to the stupid media who, again, always wants to see quote-unquote presidents do the same things that other past presidents have done. We have to see a stop to all of that. We have to see a stop to all of those invitations and those ceremonies and those rituals. We have to see a stop to that in the future. That's where you're really going to notice, I think, that there's real movement in a positive direction. Now, with that said, let me get into the protocols of the Elders of Zion, because again, this is not an accident, and they've been planning these kinds of things, which of course we are seeing all throughout society and all throughout the world, with a heightened sense of regularity here. Here we go. A summary of the 24 protocols of the learned elders of Zion. Here's what the individual on X said. Again, their particular site is PARAGJY, if you're interested in following them on X. They said the following, quote, "In this thread, I have prepared summaries for each chapter of the book, The Protocols of the Elders of Zion, first published in 1905, Russia. Some believe this book is a fabricated text purporting to detail a Jewish plot for global domination. But at the same time, many find irrefutable parallels with its context to what's happening now around the world. It says in 1921, American businessman Henry Ford wrote about this book, saying, quote, "The only statement I care to make about the protocols is that they fit in with what is going on. They are 16 years old and they have fitted the world situation up to this time," unquote. Now, even after 120 years, the same can be acknowledged even in today by many. If its context resonates with you, please repost and share and keep the discussion alive. And if you want to read more contents like this, please give me a follow. Would be much appreciated. Here we go. There are 24 of them. Number 1. It says Summary of Protocol 1, the Basic Doctrine. We deliberately introduce slogans, quote, "liberty, equality, fraternity," unquote, to the masses, knowing these catchy phrases would lure them in and dismantle the well-being and true freedom of individuals. The people, especially the so-called intellectuals, couldn't grasp the deeper meaning behind these words. They didn't recognize that nature itself dictates inequality in minds, characters, and capacities, just as it dictates subordination to natural laws. The masses and the upstarts who rule them are blind, unable to grasp political matters. Yet our drastic rule thrived because it passed down political knowledge from father to son, ensuring that only a select few understood the true state of affairs. As time passed, this transfer of power weakened, aiding the success of our plans. By spreading the ideals of liberty, equality, fraternity through our agents across the world, we gathered countless followers who unknowingly supported our cause. These ideals, like cankerworms, destroyed the peace, solidarity, and foundations of the Goyim states. This, in turn, allowed us to strike at their aristocracy, the only real defense against us. On the ruins of their eternal aristocracy, we established our own, one that is founded on wealth, which we control, and knowledge, which our elders provide. This new aristocracy, led by those with money and intellectual superiority, is firmly in our grasp. Our strategy was made easier by manipulating the desires and weaknesses of men. By appealing to their greed, their insatiable hunger for material needs, we paralyzed their initiative and took control of their will. By offering them the illusion of freedom, we persuaded the masses that their government was merely a steward, easily replaceable, putting even more power, it says, in our hands to appoint leaders as we saw fit. Through these means, we have successfully gained control over political appointments and established ourselves as the true rulers. Our triumph is based on exploiting the very foundations of human nature, using freedom as a base to weaken governments infected by liberalism. When their reins of power are slackened, we are quick to gather them up, knowing that the blind masses need guidance and cannot rule themselves." Unquote. Then it goes on, Protocol 2, Economic Wars. It is crucial for our plans that wars do not result in territorial gains but are fought on economic grounds. This will place both sides under the control of our international agents, allowing our international rights to override national ones. We will appoint administrators who, while untrained in governance, will be obedient and easily controlled by our experts. These experts, trained since childhood, are guided by our political strategies, will manipulate the Goyim, who rely on theories without understanding real consequences. We have already succeeded in this through ideas like Darwinism, Marxism, and Nietzscheism, which have confused and weakened the minds of the Goyim. We understand the characters and tendencies of nations, allowing us to tailor our system to each one's temperament. A key tool is the press, which we will use to spread discontent and steer public thought while remaining in the background. The Goyim do not understand the powers of the press, but we will have used it to gain influence and control. Through it, we have gained wealth, even at the cost of our own people's lives, but this sacrifice has been worthwhile. For each of our victims is worth far more than 1,000 Goyim. Unquote. Summary of Protocol 3, Methods of Conquest. We are now close to our ultimate goal, with just a few steps left before Europe is fully controlled within our grasp, symbolized by the closing of the symbolic snake, quote-unquote. The constituents of today are intentionally unstable, ensuring constant disorder while kings are weakened by their isolated positions. We have stirred up chaos by setting forces against each other, encouraging a misuse of power, and turning states into arenas of conflict. The press and bold journalists further escalate this by discrediting institutions and preparing the masses for revolt. Poverty remains our most powerful weapon. Though people once escaped slavery, they cannot escape the chains of poverty. We give them illusions of rights and freedoms, but these are meaningless in the face of their toil and suffering. Their votes only serve to install our chosen leaders. By supporting movements like socialism and communism, we pretend to be the saviors of the workers, but our true aim is to weaken and control them, keeping them in a state of dependency. We have annihilated the aristocracy and turned the people into slaves of capitalism. When the time comes, the mobs will rise, manipulated by us, to destroy all opposition. The people have forgotten how to think independently and are easily manipulated by our specialists. We will create an economic crisis, unleashing mobs to shed blood and loot, while we remain untouched and secure. Once we establish our rule, We will teach the people the true nature of social existence, reinforcing class divisions and ensuring they accept their positions. The illusion of freedom will be erased, for it only incites violence and unrest. In the end, the masses will submit to our authority, willingly accepting their chains, while we pacify any remaining opposition through our wise yet ruthless leadership. The people will believe they are fighting for their own welfare and rights, unaware that they are paving the way for our ultimate domination." Unquote. Summary of Protocol 4. Materialism replace religion. Every republic goes through stages. The first is chaos from the blind mob, followed by demagogy leading to anarchy, which ultimately results in hidden despotism controlled by secret forces like ours. This unseen power grows stronger as it works behind the scenes, unimpeded by changing agents. Our force, shielded by Gentile masonry, remains an unknown mystery to the people. To control the people, we must destroy faith in God, replacing it with materialism and calculations. People must focus on industry and trade, diverting their attention away from us. By placing industry on a speculative basis, we ensure wealth flows into our hands. This struggle for superiority will foster cold, heartless societies that reject religion and higher political ideals, worshiping only gold. When the time is right, the lower classes will rise not for the wealth or goodness, but out of hatred for the privileged, following us against the intellectual elites of the Goyim." Unquote. Summary of Protocol 5. Despotism and modern progress. In corrupt societies where wealth is gained through deceit, only a despotic form of rule can succeed. We will centralize power and enact laws to strip away the freedoms granted by the Goyim, ensuring that any opposition is swiftly crushed. Though some may argue this despotism doesn't align with modern progress, we will demonstrate its necessity. By removing faith in God and kings, we have seized power and kept the masses focused on material needs using manipulation and division to prevent unity. Our force remains invisible, protected by discord among the Goyim, religious, racial, and national hatred, which we have fostered for centuries, ensures that no state can stand against us. Capital, controlled by us, powers the political system of the world. We encourage monopolies in industry and trade to weaken the people while using public criticism, the empty speeches to distract and confuse them, to control public opinion. We will flood the masses with contradictory views, leading them into confusion so they stop forming political opinions. By fostering discord and weakening individual initiative, we ensure that personal genius and leadership cannot arise to challenge us. In this chaos, the people will eventually submit to our international super government, which will gradually absorb all state powers, creating an unseen but powerful global administration. Unquote. Summary of Protocol 6. Takeover technique. We will soon establish massive monopolies amassing wealth so vast that even the fortunes of the Goyim will depend on them. And when political collapse occurs, their wealth will sink with the state's credit. Our super government will be portrayed as a protector to those who submit to us, enhancing its influence. The political power of the Goyim aristocracy, is dead, but their land ownership remains a threat. To control them, we will burden their properties with debt, forcing them into submission as they struggle to maintain their resources. Our strategy will drive the Goyim into poverty. We will promote trade, industry, and speculation, draining labor and capital from the land and into our hands, eventually turning all the Goyim into proletarians. Luxury and greed will fuel their downfall, as we raise wages, but simultaneously increase the cost of living, citing agricultural decline. We will also corrupt the workers through anarchy and drunkenness, while eliminating the educated Goyim. We keep our intentions hidden. We will mask our actions as a desire to help the working class using political economy principles to spread our economic propaganda and delay their understanding of the truth." Unquote. Summary of Protocol 7. Worldwide wars. We will intensify armaments and increase policy forces globally to ensure that apart from us, only the proletariat, a few millionaires loyal to us, police and soldiers remain. We will create discord across Europe and other continents, allowing us to control countries by manipulating their internal unrest. Through political and economic treaties, we will tangle states in our web of influence while presenting ourselves as honest benefactors to the public. If any country opposes us, we will respond with war. And if neighboring nations unite against us, we will trigger a universal war. Our success relies on secrecy, ensuring that our words do not align with our actions. We will compel Goyim governments to act in line with our plan by shaping public opinion through our control of the press. To maintain control over Europe's government, we will use terrorism and, if necessary, military force from nations like America, China, or Japan to suppress any widespread resistance." Unquote. Summary of Protocol 8. Provisional government. We must arm ourselves with every tool our opponents could use against us, finding legal justification for any bold or unrest judgments we may have to take. These decisions will be framed in language that seems morally sound and legal. Our government will surround itself with experts, publicists, jurists, diplomats, and specially trained individuals from our schools who understand human nature and the social structure. They will manipulate the Goyim who perform administrative duties blindly, without understanding the larger purpose. We will also be supported by a network of economists, bankers, industrialists, and millionaires, as everything will be controlled by financial figures. Initially, we will place non-Jews in key roles. People with questionable pasts, who are bound to us by fear of criminal charges. They will serve our interests completely, ensuring their loyalty until it is safe to entrust these positions to our own people." Unquote. Summary of Protocol 9. Re-education. We must adapt our principles to each country's character, applying them cautiously until the people are re-educated to our standards. The liberal ideas of liberty, equality, fraternity, quote-unquote, will be transformed into hollow concepts like, quote, the right of liberty, the duty of equality, the ideal of brotherhood, unquote, when we assume power. Although some states appear to oppose us, their anti-Semitism is essential for controlling our lesser brethren. Our super government operates beyond legal limits, wielding immense power, ruling by force and ambition. We have infiltrated all fractions, monarchists, socialists, communists, and used them to destroy authority and order in all states. Nations will beg for peace, but we will not give it until they submit to our rule. Socialist divisions and financial dependence have placed the people in our hands. We prevent any union between the Goy kings and mobs through mutual terror. The blind mob supports us, and we will guide them toward our goals, entering into close communication with them when necessary. Education, press, elections, and the law are all under our control, replaced by liberal chaos. We have corrupted Goyim, youth, with false theories, and by twisting laws through contradictory interpretations. We've created confusion, hiding the true laws from governments. If the Goyim realize our plan too early, we have a final measure in place. Underground corridors beneath all capitals ready to destroy them and their institutions if needed. Unquote. Summary of Protocol 10. Preparing for power. We must ensure that governments and people remain content with superficial appearances while we maintain control over key aspects like taxation and laws without openly revealing our principles. The masses admire political trickery, and we accept our audacious plans, accept our audacious plans as cleverness. Our goal is to achieve global power, rallying all nations to support the structure we have devised. When we carry out our coup, we will present ourselves as the solution to their suffering, and the masses will exalt us, granting us full control through the voting system we've manipulated. To secure power, everyone must vote regardless of class, creating an absolute majority that will rely on our leadership for their survival. We will manipulate the mob, who will look to us for their earnings and benefits, and we will control them through our agents. A single brain must direct the government, avoiding any delusion of its power through debate or alteration. Liberalism has poisoned the state, causing its slow death. The era of republics, led by our puppet presidents, has replaced strong rulers, and we will continue to appoint presidents with compromised pasts who will do our bidding out of fear. These presidents will have the power to declare war, dissolve parliaments, and interpret laws as we dictate, solidifying our control. We will gradually destroy constitutions and move toward a global despotism. In time, the people, exhausted by the chaos and incompetence of their governments, will demand a single ruler to unite them to solve their problems. To bring about this desire, we will foment division, hatred and suffering worldwide, leaving the people no choice but to submit to our absolute sovereignty in money and power." Unquote. Summary of Protocol 11, the totalitarian state. The State Council will serve as the public face of the legislative core, appearing to embody the ruler's authority while acting as an editorial committee for laws and decrees. Our new Constitution will implement law and justice through proposals, presidential decrees, Senate orders, and State Council resolutions. Any needed changes will be introduced carefully after the resolution, ensuring that freedoms like press and association disappear or are radically altered. Immediate and decisive authority will be displayed to prevent any opposition, instilling fear and submission among the people, who will be too terrified to challenge us. The Goyim are like sheep, and we are their wolves, ready to take full control while promising to restore their liberties once peace is achieved, though they will never see those freedoms again. Our secret policy, developed through Masonic lodges, has been designed to manipulate and deceive the Goyim, without them realizing our true intentions. Our scattered nature, once seen as a weakness, has become our strength, leading us to the brink of global sovereignty. Only a few more steps remain to complete our ultimate goal." Unquote. Summary of Protocol 12. Control of the press. We define freedom as the right to do only what the law permits, which allows us to control freedom by shaping laws to serve our interests. The press will be tightly controlled through taxes, deposits, and fines, ensuring that no attacks on our authority go unpunished. We will establish some press organs ourselves to create the illusion of free press, but they will only criticize points we pre-select. All news will be filtered through agencies we control, and no public announcement will be made without our approval. Journalism and literature, powerful tools of influence, will be brought under our control through regulations, licensing, and financial pressure. Our government will own most journalists, and we will set up publications with diverse viewpoints to gain trust from all sides while secretly controlling them. This will allow us to guide public opinion while giving the appearance of debate and opposition. We will manipulate the press to print both truth and lies as needed to maintain control, stirring up or calming the public mind. Our opponents will have no way to fully express their views, and our semi-official press will counter any attack against us. Journalists are bound by secrecy and fear of exposure, ensuring they remain loyal to us. We will also inflame provincial opinion, using it to control the capitals when needed. As we transition to our new regime, we will suppress any reports of public dishonesty, creating the illusion that the new government has eliminated criminality, and only victims and chance witnesses will know of any wrongdoing. This approach will ensure that the public believes in the perfection of our rule." Unquote. Summary of Protocol 13, Distractions. The Goyim are kept silent and submissive due to their daily needs, while our agents in the press will discuss topics we prefer not to address officially. We will push through our desired measures and present them as improvements, distracting the public view new questions and discussions. The masses trained to seek constant novelty will be too occupied to realize they don't truly understand politics. We deceive the workers by shifting their focus from political matters to industry and entertainment. By promoting competitions in art and sports, we will further distract them, preventing them from forming independent opinions. The liberals and dreamers will continue to serve our interests by spreading utopian ideas until our rule is fully established. When we come to power, our orators will present the great issue that have plagued humanity, making our rule seem like the solution. No one will suspect that we have been stage managing the world's events according to our secret political plan for centuries. Unquote. Summary of the Protocol 14, Assault on Religion. When we come into power, we will eliminate all religions except ours, the belief in the one God, to whom we are bound as the chosen people. Atheism will serve as a transitional phase, eventually leading people to embrace the religion of Moses. We will emphasize its mystical authority and highlight the stability it brings compared to past chaotic governments. We will depict Goyim governments as failures, causing the people to prefer tranquility under our rule, even if it means sacrificing their freedom. We will also point out the historical mistakes of Goyim governments, showing how their pursuit, of false social ideas only worsened the state of humanity. Our methods will be presented as the solution to the decaying old order. While we critique other beliefs, our faith will remain undisputed and understood only by us. We have already introduced corrupt literature in progressive countries, which we will continue to support temporarily. We will provide a stark contrast to the speeches and programs we distribute once in power, using our influence to direct the minds of the Goyim toward the ideas we have predetermined. Unquote. Summary of Protocol 15, Ruthless Suppression. When we finally come into power, we will eliminate all opposition, secret societies, and plots. Those who resist us will be executed, and no appeal will be allowed. In the meantime, we will use secret societies, particularly Masonic lodges, to infiltrate governments and control revolutionary and liberal elements. These lodges will serve as intelligence networks, allowing us to monitor and manipulate all political activities. The Goyim, naive and focused on their own successes, will be easily manipulated by our suggestions and guided by our trusted servants. We will maintain control by keeping the masses distracted, while our judges and officials serve only us, ensuring that our laws are enforced with strict punishment for any disobedience. Liberalism will be rooted out from all important positions, and only those trained by us will hold power. Our government will appear paternal and protective, and the people will see our ruler as a father figure, accepting his authority with devotion. We will establish a system of absolute submission, justifying it as a natural order. Sacrifices will be made to maintain this system, but the number of victims will be far fewer than those lost under the disordered governments of the past. Our King of Israel will become the patriarch of the world, guiding humanity with strength and wisdom, and his speeches will be heard across the globe. Unquote. Summary of Protocol 16, Brainwashing. To destroy all collective forces but our own, we will reshape universities by re-educating officials and professors, with strict, secret programs making them entirely dependent on the government. Political and state law will be taught only to a select few, as widespread education in these areas creates utopian dreamers and bad citizens. We will remove harmful subjects and teach obedience, turning the youth into loyal subjects of authority. We will change history, education, erasing undesirable events and focusing only on the failures of the Goyim governments. Education will prioritize practical life, order, and moral relations, tailoring teachings to specific life roles to prevent untalented individuals from entering inappropriate ranks. The occasional genius will still emerge, but mass education will no longer permit widespread intellectual freedom. Freedom of instruction will be abolished, with education instead becoming a tool for indoctrination in schools and public spaces. New theories will be presented as dogma to guide the population. And through controlled education, we will gradually eliminate independent thought, turning people into unthinking followers. This system is already being tested in places like France, where teaching by object lessons is preparing the Goyim to be submissive and easily controlled." Unquote. Summary of Protocol 17. Abuse of authority. We will reshape the practices of advocacy, making lawyers mere functionaries of the state, receiving cases only from the court and working without personal interest or contact with clients. This will remove corruption and ensure that justice is served impartially. At the same time, we will continue to weaken the influence of religion, especially Christianity, which is already losing its hold due to freedom of conscience. We will eventually destroy the papal court, posing as defendants to perpetuate and dismantle its power from within. Our ultimate goal is for the King of the Jews to become the universal pope, overseeing the international church. In the meantime, we will criticize and undermine existing churches through the press to create divisions, without directly attacking them, rather. Our press will also relentlessly degrade the Goyim's state affairs and religions, diminishing their prestige. Our kingdom will be like Vishnu, with the hands controlling every aspect of social life. We will establish a worldwide network of informers, where spying will be seen as a duty to the state and failure to report political matters will be punishable. Our agents will come from all levels of society, serving as witnesses and reporters, while arrests will be carried out by the police. This system will prevent abuses of power and bribery, which we initially introduced to Goyim society to destabilize their administration." Unquote. Summary of Protocol 18. Arrest of opponents. When we need to tighten secret defense measures, we will simulate disorders to discontent using persuasive speakers to attract followers. This will provide us with the excuse to conduct searches and surveillance under the guise of maintaining order. We won't act against conspirators until they take overt action, as frequent exposure of conspirators weakens the authority of the government, making it appear vulnerable. Our ruler will be protected subtly, avoiding the appearance of fear or weakness, unlike the Goyim rulers who have harmed their prestige by acknowledging threats against them. Our ruler will seem strong and invincible, mingling with the public and receiving petitions openly, reinforcing the idea that the people's well-being is tied to his authority. The aura of authority will be maintained without overt defenses, as visible protection erodes the mystical power of leadership and emboldens sedition. Criminals, especially those involved in political matters, will be arrested on the slightest suspicion with no room for leniency. We will be ruthless in dealing with any potential threat to the state, ensuring that no one challenges our rule." Unquote. Summary of Protocol 19. Rulers and people. We will prevent independent political involvement, but encourage petitions and reports with suggestions for improving the people's condition. By examining these, we will identify any flaws or fantasies among the public, either acting on them or providing a rebuttal to demonstrate the faults in their thinking. Sedition in comparison to a well-organized government is as insignificant as a lapdog barking at an elephant. Once the public recognizes the true power of the government, they will stop resisting and fall in line. To undermine the idea of heroism in political crime, we will categorize it alongside common crimes such as theft and murder, diminishing its prestige and causing public opinion to view it with the same contempt as other dishonorable acts. We have worked to ensure that the Goyim do not adapt this approach to sedition. By promoting the idea of martyrdom for political dissent through the press, speeches, and history books, we have increased the number of liberals and drawn more Goyim into our control." Unquote. Summary of Protocol 20. Financial Program. This section outlines the financial program that we will solidify control once power is fully attained. The government, seen as a protector, will avoid overtaxing the masses, but will maintain balance by progressively taxing the wealthy, ensuring state funds without stifling the population. Confiscation of wealth will be lawful, and this approach will shift financial burdens to the rich, removing the hatred of the poor toward them. Taxes on capitalists will curb the private accumulation of wealth, which has been concentrated in opposition to state strength. The rich will be required to contribute to state functions, diminishing class tensions by portraying the wealthy as supporters of peace and well-being. Transparency will be offered in the use of funds, excluding what is set aside for the throne and administrative needs. The state will control money circulation, ensuring funds return to the public through works and rewards, preventing the stagnation of money. Public works will tie the working class to the state's interests, while progressive taxes and regulations will control transfers of property and wealth. The gold standard, which has weakened the Gentiles' state, will be replaced with a new system based on the value of labor. Loans, particularly foreign loans, will be eradicated as they lead to unnecessary financial dependence. Instead, the state will only issue low-interest-bearing paper and focus on circulating money for productive purposes. By removing interest-bearing loans and restructuring finances, the system will prevent stagnation and allow the state to grow independently. Through precise planning, the government will stop wasteful spending and the leeching of state funds by external parties. The old system of loans, which made states indebted to foreign capitalists, will end, and a new, clear accounting system will ensure that funds serve only the interests of the state. Unquote. Summary of Protocol 21. Loans and Credit. This section discusses the manipulation of internal loans and financial systems to gain control over states. In the past, internal loans allowed governments to borrow from their own citizens by offering interest-bearing paper. These loans were staged to appear in high demand, creating an illusion of confidence. However, the burden of repaying interests on these loans eventually forced governments to take out new loans, perpetuating a cycle of debt. When loans were converted to reduce interest payments, citizens typically accepted losses rather than risk new investments. Under the planned new regime, such financial tricks will no longer be permitted. All manipulative practices in money markets which create artificial fluctuations in value will be eradicated. The new government will control industrial value through credit institutions, ensuring prices remain stable and regulated by law. By controlling the entire financial and industrial system, the new rulers will secure immense power over global economies, making all industrial undertakings dependent on them. This centralized control will ensure the governments cannot manipulate funds to their own advantage, as has been done in the past. Unquote. Summary of Protocol 22, Power of Gold. Gold is the greatest power of time, is readily available in unlimited quantities, symbolizing absolute control. This rule is seen as predestined by God, with even the past evils justified as necessary steps toward a greater good, restoring order and ensuring true freedom. Freedom is not framed as an unrestrained liberty, but as the inviolability of a person who strictly observes societal laws, respecting both rights and responsibilities. Authority is not based on chaotic principles or hollow ideals, but on firm, unyielding order. It will inspire reverence and awe, as true power makes no concessions, not even to divine rights. The future leadership will be all-powerful, guiding people with clear structure and demanding respect through its sheer force and unshakable strength." Unquote. Summary of Protocol 23, Instilling Obedience. To instill obedience in the people, it becomes necessary to teach humility and reduce the production of luxury goods, which will help improve morale and have been eroded by competition in luxury. Small-scale production will be reestablished, undermining private capital and large manufacturers, who often influence the masses against the government. A society of small masters will not suffer from unemployment, creating a closer connection to the established order and strengthening the authority of the state. This system will be discarded once full control is established. Drunkenness will be outlawed and treated as a crime against humanity. Subjects respond to a strong and independent ruler, seeing in him the power to protect them from societal threats, not a figure of angelic virtue. The supreme leader who will replace existing rulers will have to extinguish the anarchy that has spread, even if it requires bloodshed, to rebuild society into disciplined forces for the state. This leader, chosen by divine will defeat the forces of violence and chaos that have flourished under false ideals of freedom and rights. Once his reign begins, these forces will be swept away, leaving a clear path for his rule. The people will then be called to give thanks to God and submit to the chosen one, the bearer of divine destiny, who will bring an end to chaos and restore order. Unquote. Finally, summary of Protocol 24, Qualities of the Ruler. The confirmation of the dynastic roots of King David will be established through the control of education and thought, overseen by learned elders. Certain members of David's lineage will be selected, not by heritage, but by their capabilities, and they will be trained in secret political and governmental ministries. Only those who show firmness and the capacity for strict rule, even cruelty, if necessary, will be allowed to govern. Heirs deemed unfit during their training will be set aside, and kings showing weakness or incapacity must relinquish their power. The king's plans, even for the current moment, will be known only to him and his closest advisors, maintaining an air of mystery. His mind will be examined by the learned elders before ascending the throne to ensure he is capable. He will interact with the people to gain their love, while also keeping them under a certain level of fear and control until the time is right to unify these forces. The king must exhibit self-control, avoiding passions and sensuality, as these disrupt clear thinking and effective rule. As a supreme leader descended from David, he must be irreproachable and sacrifice personal desires for the good of the people. Unquote. I think it's beyond evident that this is something, of course, that has been going on and certainly went on throughout the entire 20th century. It's going on in the 21st century, certainly within the first quarter of this century. And again, I hope and I pray that Donald Trump is not a part of this evil plan. I certainly hope that that's the case. If he is, again, having read the protocols myself before in their entirety, and me just now, of course, reading the summary there, you can't help but think about him in the middle of this entire plan. And certainly regarding the protocols. I certainly hope that that's not the case. I think time is going to tell on all of this, but we just have to keep waking people up to all of this. I don't know how else to put it. We need people to understand that Zionists, Jews, and the Jewish lobby have scripts, orders, and plans in place because of their control measures and the different aspects of society globally that they control, that this is what we have to expose. That we have to call all of these people out for exactly what they are. Not to mention, having listened to that now, you're fully aware of the different control mechanisms that, of course, exist not only within the press, but within education as well. It's not an accident that this show doesn't get listened to very often by a whole lot of people. It's not an accident that I don't have paid subscribers and a bunch of promo codes. The 2 promo codes I have are free. Again, I don't get any kickbacks for them. And what are they for? They're for publishing outlets that publish the truth about things like what I just read. That's why I can't exist on YouTube. Not playing the victim here. I'm simply saying the protocols line out exactly why I'm not on other platforms. And why people like me are not on other platforms. This is exactly why, which means when you see individuals who are allowed on those platforms with all of the followers that they have and all of the money that comes their way and the clicks and the subscribes and the blah, blah, blah. When you see all of that, that is not accidental. They are controlled to a great extent by these powers that be, so they think, whether those individuals who are running those programs and those platforms and those shows know it or not. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not bought, I'm not sold. I never will be. I'm a former school teacher. I'm just a guy. I just like to read, I like to write, and I like to think. And clearly, based on the protocols, that's a crime. They don't want people to do that. And they certainly don't want to promote individuals who are doing that, not just for themselves per se, but to help other people, because they don't want other people to know, because they don't want other people to wake up. Now let me round all of this out with education here, because again, clearly education is a big part, quote unquote, indoctrination, as even they say in the protocols. You've heard me speak about the subject of violence in school before. Again, it was the basis of most of my research in the past. It still is. It's beyond evident, though, because again, like the scientific method, you eventually arrive at a conclusion. You can't really rewrite the book too much, of course, and you can't reinvent the wheel. When you arrive at the conclusion as to why things are the way that they are, and everybody who is responsible for maintaining why things are the way that they are, and blindly so, then that is your singular conclusion. So, with that said, let me bring up a local issue, and then I'll bring up again a few other national issues that have all happened just within this past week regarding violence in school. You've heard me mention the local school board where I live, Talawanda City Schools, and the superintendent. You've heard me criticize all of these people publicly, privately, in written form, and through spoken word here on the show. You've heard all of the evidence and everything that I've been over. You've also heard me say that when you give these people an inch of rope, they'll hang themselves with it because they don't know when to keep their mouths closed. And every single time that you set a trap for these people, they're so stupid in their hubris and in their blind, whatever it is, their blind existence to just please people, not paying attention to their own illegality, their own criminality, and their own hypocrisy. They just continue to talk. They don't shut up. And they don't think that anybody is going to point out their own hypocrisy. So just this past week, the superintendent decided, his name is Edward Thoreau, old Eddie decided to send out an email to all of the parents and all of the staff members, because there's been some stupid students in school who have threatened violence over social media. They'll post a picture of a gun because they're dared to do so, and then the school, flips out. Or somebody says on social media that the school needs a good school shooting or something along those lines, which is remarkably stupid to say, certainly in this day and age, but either way, they say it and then the school flips out. But the school does not flip out, nor expel the adopted son of a now former school board member who continues to engage in violence toward female and male students. See, when the violence happens in the building and the punishments are dealt out unjustly and irregularly across the board within school environments, by default, you breed more school violence. This is the way that it works. It's always been this way. It will always be this way. As long as your punishments are tolerable and send a clear message to everybody else in the building, including the parents who are foolish enough to still send their children to these environments, that the punishments are tolerable. Even if the law gets involved with judges and restraining orders, etc., you're still sending the message that illegality will still exist within our buildings, which means these are not safe places. You've heard me use the metaphor of a restaurant. If a restaurant is engaging in illegality, the food is poison, and the customers don't like it, why are you still going? This continues to be the issue. But in his hubris as a superintendent, albeit his final stop before retirement, because this individual will never get a job ever again, he's put out this particular letter, and I want to read it to you because it's remarkably embarrassing. Here's what he said, quote, and this was on October 8th, Talawanda families. He said, I am writing today to discuss the importance of safety and security in the Talawanda School District. More importantly, I'm also writing today to ask for the help of all parents in the Talawanda community, ! Recently, the community and district have experienced an increase in the number of disciplinary issues regarding student-on-student threats of violence during both school hours and after school hours. In addition, the district has experienced threats of mass violence at individual school buildings. In each instance, mobile phone activity and social media are primary factors. Everyone understands that young people can be impulsive, sometimes seeking attention of any kind or even acting out of defense, even though threats of violence are never the appropriate response. We all must work together now to reduce these behaviors. The district has resources to assist with the social emotional needs of students, so please do reach out if you know your student needs additional support. Communication from home to school is important. The district can only help families if they know when students are struggling. I could spend an entire episode on that paragraph alone because everything he says is backwards. Families don't need to rely on government for help. And he, of course, is government, and he's asking parents to rely on their help. But he wants parents to rely on him for help. You can't have both. All of these student services and all these government officials and all of this nonsense within government isn't designed to do the right thing. It's designed to kick the can and create more excuses for sociopaths and psychopaths. He went on. He said the district has made sure that all Talawanda families have been alerted to the new law in Ohio regarding mobile phones, personal communication devices that prohibits these communication devices from being out during the school day and certainly prohibits their use during class time at school. What does this mean? This means that young people are mostly using their phones' devices during times outside of the school day. That's none of your business. It says, together we must take more leadership and responsibility for students understanding the serious consequences of misusing their mobile communication devices and social media accounts. We must teach and remind our children about appropriate ways to behave and respect our school teachers, administrators, and other school staff. And last, but certainly not least, their fellow students. We must also work together for the goal of safety and harmony in our schools. Bullshit. This man is a hypocrite. He's a walking hypocrite. He's a pathological liar. He didn't protect any female students at the hands of a board member's black adopted son. He didn't protect any of them. He never expelled the child. He was suspended periodically and repeatedly. There are court hearings about to take place regarding him, from what I understand. And there's more violence, again, that occurs within all of these buildings nationwide. But this is a guy, again, basically saying that he's not to blame for anything, that this is a parental problem, that you're not communicating with your children enough about what needs to go on within these buildings. The home learning family doesn't have to deal with any of this, not ever. He went on, he said, during the past several years, the school district has been under fire repeatedly by critics who do not walk in the shoes of our administration and teaching staff. These folks do not know or understand the care the Talawanda staff provides to students and the deep commitment and responsibility they feel toward these young people. Are you referring to me or anybody else who's criticized your ineptitude? Is that it? It doesn't work. Your words fall on deaf ears. It says every single member of the Talawanda team has mentally practiced as well as literally practiced in a wide variety of safety training exercises and drills to know how and what they will do to keep their students and team safe in emergencies. This, in addition to teaching, mentoring, coaching, and being there for the young people of this community every day. They focus on the best ways to keep students engaged in learning and also safe. It is important to share what we do and how we operate, as some simply do not know. The Talawanda team needs your support now. We have seen an unprecedented number of threatening comments on social media postings and a general spread of violence and hate. Why? Because you're hypocrites and people don't like you? People get to not like you. But as I've said here on the show, if anything happens in your building, it's not my fault. It's your fault. I have nothing to do with it. I'm not calling for any violence in your building. You bring it on yourself. Through lying. Through selective, whatever you want to call it, selective discretion, I know that's redundant, of your discipline policies. You favor some at the expense of many. You favor few at the expense of the masses. He continued to be a hypocrite in his letter, and he went on and said, it is critical at this point that students and parents understand the gravity of these situations and the consequences that can be life-altering. Statements such as, quote, they are just kids, they were joking, they were angry, or they do not know what they are saying, quote unquote, have been made in response to a series of inappropriate comments, postings, and actions. In modern times, this just won't cut it! Exclamation point. All threats are taken very seriously, thoroughly investigated, and dealt with according to policy and the law. Are they? What about all those laws you broke regarding Title IX? What about that teacher that you had groping female students year after year after year, and you let him remain employed? It wasn't until the parents of said child, who were groped by this middle school business teacher, went to the legal authorities and bypassed you. You were trying to hide it. They exposed it. No one should listen to a word this person says. No one. But if he's attempting to foment chaos in the district for sympathy, which is likely, if it's likely that there's a violent act at the local school district where I live, ladies and gentlemen, we have a chief of police in this town who is a federal agent. He's a graduate of the FBI. Recently, I might add, certainly within the last year plus. This town is ripe for the picking when it comes to a false flag. And this school district needs good press because they have nothing but negative press because no one with a brain likes them. They're degenerates. in their personal and professional lives, which, by the way, reminds me, very quickly before I finish this stupid email and hypocritical email, remember in the past when I brought up the story and the actual peer-reviewed studies having to do with hiring individuals who are black or of the same color, quote unquote, as the majority of the students, and that when you do that, that somehow increases academic success, so the Marxists would lead you to believe? Remember all of that nonsense when again, predominantly white schools like the one where I live will openly say we need to hire more people of color, which is completely bigoted and violates the Civil Rights Act. But at the exact same time, they mention in particular, the local school board and the superintendent himself mention all of this as if it's an actual, real, proven thing, that black students need to see a black teacher because then they'll be more successful as opposed to looking at a white teacher all day long. Every single board member, except for one to my knowledge, or perhaps two, so certainly it would have been 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, including, I might add, the superintendent. The superintendent and 3 board members, one previously, all of them are white, and all of them have adopted children who are not white. So what's all of this stuff about how school teachers need to be black in order to benefit black students because that's only how black students learn, is by looking at people of their own race? It's the dumbest argument I've ever heard in my entire life, because if that were true, then all inner city schools with black employees and black students would be the most successful schools in the history of the planet. But because that's not the case, that destroys your entire theory. So it has nothing to do with race or skin color, because those don't think. This again is the hypocrisy of these people. They say these things and they think no one is going to point this out. The superintendent has an adopted child, at least one, who is not white. Same thing with David Bathurst. Both or all 3 adopted children are black. He's white. It goes down the line. Pat Mead, black adopted children. Rebecca Howard, not white. If they even have adopted children, which I think they do, at least one, not white. Again, these people's hypocrisy is astounding. His email goes on and says, Talawanda School District families and community members need to know and understand that at any time when one of our schools is dealing with an issue that involves safety and security, the school and students will be secured first. Communication will come as quickly as possible, but not likely until after the issue has passed and is being resolved. It takes time to investigate and understand the facts. Often posts on social media share information that lacks details and facts before the completion of an investigation. Ladies and gentlemen, again, I have to interject here and say this again before I finish this dumb email. Someone told him to write this either to cover his own ass or to preempt something that is pre-planned that is coming, that is going to be a false flag of some kind. Why else would you write this? You'd be writing this for one of 2 reasons. It isn't because these are competent people. It's because they're setting the stage for something to happen and they want to reassure people that they are the people that you can trust. Because no one with a brain actually believes any of this. It says it's important to let the experts do their work, so he says. Parents, family members can trust that the district always communicates with the parents, guardians of students involved in a dispute or disciplinary issue first before determining if the event warrants communication to the other parents in the school and or district. Bullshit. I know for a fact that's not true. It is imperative that the district officials have the time to do their work and investigate. Talawanda School District asks for your patience and cooperation with this. Why? It says the district has communicated repeatedly that student disciplinary information is confidential and that no one has the right to review any confidential student information for children that are not the parent/guardian of. We cannot emphasize the critical nature of maintaining student confidentiality enough! ! Please remember it takes time to conduct an investigation and to contact all of the students' families involved. The district wants to be thorough and accurate, and please know that we take the time to be fair to all of our students. We understand that every parent wants respect, honesty, and justice. Please think about how you would feel if someone posted a rumor about your own child before you post things on social media that you do not have all of the facts of. Well, how about this one? How about David Bothus, the former school board member who has since resigned out of total embarrassment, as he should have, if not illegality? How about his son being arrested by the local police for possessing a thumb drive filled with pornography and potentially pictures of himself that he sent to female students? What about that one? I'm in possession of the police report. His name is redacted. There's no telling that it's actually him, but it does say that it's a minor. It does say that it happened back in February and that a thumb drive, a USB drive, was confiscated. What was on the thumb drive? Yet he's allowed to return to school. Isn't that interesting? He goes on and says, please take some time to talk with your children about recent events here in our community and across the country. Emphasize the importance of respecting others. Share information about these serious consequences for making a threat or pulling pranks that present as a threat. Please know and share that hate has no place in our schools. Maybe it's not hate. Maybe it's a disagreement. Maybe it's that. People get to not like one another. This is allowed. That's not a crime. The elders of the Protocols of Zion would want you to think it's a crime, but it's not a crime. It says, emphasize the importance of respecting others, share information about the serious consequences of making a threat or pulling pranks, blah, blah, blah. Comments, postings, and inappropriate behaviors that interfere or disrupt the learning environment or may be a safety concern will be taken seriously and dealt with appropriately. Is that right? Is that right? What about all those girls that have had their lives threatened by a former school board member's son? What happened with him? School resource officers and potentially local law enforcement will be involved in behaviors that present as a threat. We need students to know and understand that in these modern times, the school administration and staff have to take threatening conduct seriously. It is important to prevent a major crisis from occurring in this community! ! This is a guy who's setting something up. He sounds like he's setting something up here. He goes on, he says, together we can support all of our young people on their educational journey, maturation, and ultimately successfully graduating from Talawanda High School. The district is providing fantastic educational experiences for every student, so please help us be able to continue this work with fewer distractions and with safety in mind. You're a hypocrite. We have amazing students, he says. We have amazing support from TSD families. We need you to help stop, all capitalized, these crazy and unprecedented threats displayed of anger, hatred, and code of conduct violations by talking to and reminding your children about the expectations for their behavior both at school and in the community. This is a cover your ass email. 100%. COA. The nerve of this guy to talk about codes of conduct. He's violated almost every single one of them for his own contract. Please understand that this letter is not meant to point fingers or judge, he says. He doesn't even hear himself. The intent is to make parents, family members aware so that we may work together and solve issues before they become problems. There have been too many disciplinary interventions and consequences resulting in lost educational opportunities this school year. That doesn't matter. Expel them. But they won't, because they never do. We know the parents, family members are the most influential people in a child's life. Please support the district in these endeavors so that students can be fully engaged and take advantage of the many great opportunities available at Talawanda School District. What advantage or opportunities do public schools have? None. The answer is zero. He wrapped up. He said, in closing, I would like to personally thank all of the parents, family members, and students who have stepped up in the past and who follow the TSD motto of see something, say something. That's your motto? That was George Bush's motto back in the early 2000s. Why is that your motto? Seems like an odd school motto, doesn't it? You would think that your motto would be something like, learning the truth no matter where it takes you, or something like that. But nope, see something, say something is their motto. My God. What is that in Latin? Do they have that inscribed in Latin on the interior walls of the building? Please continue, he says, to speak up. Encourage students to seek out a trusted adult. We know it takes courage to speak up. Thank you for your cooperation and support in making this a fantastic community to live, work, and to go to school in. Let's change this narrative together. Thank you. In education, Dr. Edward Thoreau, Talawanda Superintendent. The man is certifiable. He's absolutely certifiable. His hypocrisy knows no bounds. He has created these problems, and here's the best part. His words are not working. I think large in part thanks to the public exposure of this entire district and the people within, along with my Substack article. Posts like this have been made on Facebook. This is the Talawanda outlying areas where it says, quote, did everyone get this? First, I will say that I 100% agree that there should be zero violence or threats, and we as parents should definitely be educating our kids on this. If you are not, you are a part of the problem. That being said, in all of this talking in circles, if you're going to talk the talk, Ed, then you need to walk the walk and be about it for all students, and not just some. If 100 kids can very clearly feel threatened by emails and social media threats, and nothing is done, then the question remains why. When you're letting certain kids get away bullying others just because of your own personal relationships, why? See something, say something, question mark? Again, if you are talk the talk, be about it for all kids, this person said, unquote, on Facebook. Yeah. Yep. Calling out his hypocrisy is beyond evident. Let me give you another example that happened nationwide. This was last week. You may have heard of the male pretending to be a female in a Maine public school who beat the snot out of a female student. The title here was Trans Student had a history of sexual harassment prior to assault, biting attack that left Maine girl concussed, vision impaired. A female student was brutally assaulted, bit, and left with a concussion after an attack at the hands of a transgender male student who had recently begun taking estrogen injections. I mean, where do I begin? I saw the video. They didn't even pull this tranny off of the girl. They let him just wail on her. But again, a history of violence that went unchecked and went undisciplined. Who's surprised by any of this? Anybody? You also had this one, of course, a University of Kansas professor who said that men who don't vote, for Kamala should be shot. He's now been placed on administrative leave pending further investigation. Let's listen to his stupid comments because, again, you give these lunatics an inch of rope, they'll hang themselves with it every single time. 3, 2, 1.
Guys are smarter than girls. You got some serious problems. That's what frustrates me. There are going to be some males in our society that will refuse to vote for a potential female president because they don't think females are smart enough to be president. We could line all those guys up and shoot them. They clearly don't understand the way the world works. Did I say that? Scratch that from the recording. I don't want the deans hearing that I said that.
These people operate in a world that does not exist. They believe that they are untouchable. They believe that they will go unchecked. How wrong they are. How wrong they are. Let me play another one for you. This is also awful. This is American schools in a nutshell. This is what happens when you send your children to government. Give this news story a listen. I won't even introduce it. I'll try to let you just figure it out here. And you will. It's awful. In 3, 2, 1.
2 teachers and 2 aides have been suspended so far. Still, they don't feel comfortable sending their kids back to school. What happened with the sticker?
The sticker makes me fall asleep.
This is 4-year-old Lane Luviano. She's the one that broke this case open in September when she snuck one of her sleepy stickers out of the classroom.
She kind of pulled up her little shorts and said, "Mom, look, this is my sleeping sticker." And I was like, "The what?"
When Lane's mom, Lisa, saw the sticker, she thought it was strange and asked her daughter about it. And the teacher gives it to you where she put it?
On my arm.
On your arm? Which part? Point to it. Right up there?
Yeah.
And what's it look like?
Sleeping with a moon on it.
Lane's dad says he's known something was wrong since school first started. 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm hearing some noise in the room, and I'm going over there. She's still up. And so she gives you the sticker. You put the sticker on, and it makes you tired?
Yeah.
Wow. And all the kids get them?
Yeah.
They never notified the parents.
So Lisa took matters into her own hands. She reached out to the other parents in Lane's class and sent them pictures of the patch to see if their kids were getting the stickers too.
I showed it to my 4-year-old, and she said, yes, that's the sleepy sticker.
Melissa Guilford immediately went online to research the sticker.
Sleep Z patch. And if you read the ingredients on them, it has a lot of, it's just things I've never even heard of. And they're giving them drugs to make them sleep, to keep them quiet.
Najala Abdullah tells us she'd noticed changes in her son, who told her he'd been getting the stickers too. She says he'd been crying, stopped eating, and was bringing home lunches that he hadn't touched. The parents shared with us an email they received from Northgate Crossing Elementary's principal today. The email states 2 of the school staff members were put on leave after they allegedly administered sleeping supplements to students on September 24th. The email also states the Spring ISD Police Department is investigating.
That's right, drugging kids with a sleeping patch. The Sleep Z patch, 28 patches on Amazon for $31. Some of them are as low as $20. The Kova Sleep support patches with ashwagandha, L-taurine, if I'm saying that right, hops, melatonin, valerian, if I'm saying that right, GABA, and other natural ingredients for falling asleep faster, staying asleep longer, and eliminating groggy mornings. Poisoning children. These teachers should have their licenses removed, they should be psych evaluated, and they should be thrown in jail. Now, I have another solution. But of course, that solution will not be entertained by local authorities. And here's the problem. The parents will still send their children back. They'll still send them back. This is the problem. This is the breakdown. This is the entire mentality. This is the issue. I can't believe that any parent would still send their child back after such a thing, but they will. There's also this, again, from the higher ed standpoint of things and how this all sort of comes full circle. This was a post on Reddit, I believe. My apologies, it may not be on Reddit, although it could be. But this was sent to me from Sicily. It was titled, "I teach English at a university. The decline each year has been terrifying." They said, quote, "I work as a professor for a university on the East Coast in the United States. What strikes me the most is the decline in student writing and comprehension skills that is among the worst I've ever encountered. These are sharp declines. I recently assigned a reading exam and I had numerous students inquire if it's open book, ? And I had to tell them that no, it isn't. My students don't read. They expect to be able to submit assignments more than once. They were shocked at essay grades and asked if they could resubmit for higher grades. I told them also no. They were very surprised. To all K-12 teachers who have gone through unfair administration demanding for higher grades, who have suffered parents screaming and yelling at them because their students didn't perform well on an exam. I'm sorry. I work on the university level so that I wouldn't have to deal with the parents, and I don't. If students fail, and they do, I simply don't care at all. I don't feel a pang of disappointment when they perform at a lower level, and I keep the standard high because I expect them to rise to the occasion. What's mind-boggling is that students don't even try. All this, I also don't care. I don't even get paid that great, but it still saddens me. Students used to be determined, and the standard of learning used to be much higher. I'm sorry if you were punished for keeping your standards high. None of this is fair, and the students are suffering tremendously for it." Unquote. Because it's designed this way. The protocols of the elders of Zion, ladies and gentlemen, it is designed this way. It is designed to dumb everyone down, to become slaves, to become ignorant, so that the administrators, teachers, and those above them who make copious amounts of money are equally as stupid. That's the idea. This is how you dumb down an entire society. Let me finish with this. A quote here from Dwight Longenecker, if I'm saying that correctly. He said, quote, "First we overlook evil, then we permit evil, then we legalize evil, then we promote evil, then we celebrate evil, then we persecute those who still call it evil." Unquote. In this same post here, Isaiah 5:20, "Woe unto them that call evil good, and good evil, that put darkness for light, and light for darkness." Unquote. I'm going to end it there. I think it's pretty self-explanatory what's happening here. Abolishment of government and government institutions is the only way forward. It is quite literally their kryptonite. They hate it. They cannot stand it. They can't stand the sunshine, and they can't stand you walking away. It's the only way forward. Ladies and gentlemen, it was a long one. Thank you for listening as always. Move it around if you're interested. I may, in fact, turn the protocols there and that document into a Substack so you can move it around if you're interested. And I may even take the audio of me reading the summary of the protocols and just turn that into its own episode. I might even do that very early this weekend here, just so you can move that portion of this episode around if you're interested. With all of that said, thank you for listening as always. Have a great weekend. God bless. And I'll catch you on Monday. Peace.